infrastructure, the computer data network is one of the key assets that needs to be secured. Your computer data network, be it your local area network, as you have been made to be aware of when you were in school, in the junior levels, probably in the secondary school and possibly even in primary school for some people. Your local area network, a network of computers that you set up in your office environment or in your home, or a network that has to do with a wider reach, such as the internet, or a network that covers a larger geographical region. Irrespective of the size of this network, you need to secure it. And definitely, you have cybersecurity playing a role in this. So, this network you have set up is a valuable asset. It's a very, very important asset because upon the architecture, upon that foundation, which is the network, all other things are built. All other services are built. We have e-commerce, we have e-learning, we have e-medicine, telemedicine precisely, and some other technologies. All of them are built on the network. So definitely, if the network crashes, all other services becomes unavailable. So a network administrator definitely has to work hand in hand with a cybersecurity professional to ensure that that critical asset is kept secured. In fact, as far as some nations are concerned, the network is also a national security matter. So they never joke with that infrastructure. So definitely, your network is important. And what do we have traversing the network? Data. As we have the infrastructure, we also have the traffic. So the data that moves across your network, basically data is any information you generate or the information you receive. And of course, your information moves from point A to point B. So for it to be well secured, cybersecurity plays a role. And because data is a critical asset, just like the network, it's also a target of cyber criminals, malicious people, cyber attackers. These people, they go after data just like they go after the network infrastructure and all other assets that are related to these two critical assets. So, as a cybersecurity expert, you definitely need to know how to secure data, and you definitely you need to know how to do it very, very well. So, data is important, network is important. We have established this key point. So, it is important that we keep that at the back of our mind. Now, you may be wondering whether it is really a prerequisite for you as a cybersecurity expert to have a background in networking, that is network administration. It will be a definite advantage if you have these skills, but it doesn't stop you from proceeding on this career path if you don't have networking skills already. Because the beauty about IT is that a lot of things can be picked up along the way. So you don't necessarily need to have the skill yet, but it is strongly recommended that you consider having networking skills, also programming skills too. If you can make the time to do that, it will be very, very advantageous if you have these two. So it is important. Now, you have your online and offline identity. I've mentioned that already. So your offline identity is definitely your physical existence established, and your online identity is definitely your identity in cyberspace. And your identity, your footprint constitutes your existence in the cyberspace and the impact you have and the impact that others have on you, such as your financial dealings, your educational dealings, your records, and every other thing that you do out there in the cyberspace. So you definitely need to make sure that you keep all these things secure. I do believe that you can still hear me clearly. Everybody? Yeah, in networking, we call this acknowledgement. You send out a request and you get an acknowledgement from the other end. It's part of communication. So thank you. I've gotten a feedback. Now, When we are talking about personal data, of course, the adjective personal already uh, gives an idea of what we are talking about. We are talking about personal data, which is your data, your records, your educational records, precisely, your medical records, employment records, financial records, and all forms of records. All these things constitute data, and they are very, very, very important uh, assets that you need to keep secure. Now, in the course of our sojourn in the cyberspace, we generate records. In the course of our existence, records are generated. Records are generated, and we have a lot of them out there, and we definitely need to secure them, because if these records fall into the wrong hands, a lot of mischief, a lot of grievous harm can be brought to bear on the legitimate owner of these records. So this is the reason why it is very, very important for us to have our records properly secured. I cannot imagine what kind of problem a person can have if his, for example, educational records are compromised. For someone like a politician, I think this is the era of politicking in Nigeria. Educational records are part of the things that form the defense and arsenal of some of these uh, politicians that are vying for the one position or the other. So imagine a record is compromised, and this person is asked to make to prove that he or she attended a particular institution and the information is not available. Then you definitely need to understand that the records, definitely need to understand that the records are important. The same thing for employment records, financial records. I can't imagine also if your financial records are wiped out, you probably spell the end of life for some people. So all these records are very, very important, and it's really critical that we keep them safe and we keep them all secured. It is very, very, very important. So your data, like I said, revolves around you, and they are all about you, and you need to keep them secured. Now, you have your medical records, which I've already talked about. You have a lot of other records, even as a traveler, you have records with your airline. We have records with a lot of all other service providers. Everything just comes together to to define you, to make you, to authenticate you, and you definitely need to ensure that you secure all these things very, very well. Now, like I said earlier, cybersecurity is all about you being vigilant. It's all about you being aware that it is your responsibility, just as it is the responsibility of experts out there to secure the larger network and the larger services that the network affords you to uh, enjoy. So definitely, as a data generator, as a citizen of the cyber world, you need to keep your records safe. And some of the things you need to do doesn't necessarily require you having technical skills. It's just plain keeping your wits about you can help you in situations, because some of these threat actors, I mean criminals, cyber criminals, don't usually opt for the high tech. They might just go for the low tech, and what they do is just leverage on human vulnerability, not necessarily technical weaknesses in the system, but the weakness in the human itself. And the weakest link in any information system is usually the human factor, because a human being is someone who cannot be predicted, and who is the only one that may not be able to be programmed to follow a set of algorithms precisely without deviating. So a human being can be careful, but is also uh, can be tricked. Humans are gullible, just as we try to just maintain awareness. So you as a custodian of your personal data, or if your personal data is being warehoused somewhere, you also have a duty of responsibility to ensure that you keep your data safe by being careful. Don't allow yourself to be a victim in the hands of con artists who can just trick you. Now, how do criminals get your money? Among other things that criminals go after, they go after money directly sometimes, they go after data itself sometimes, depending on the motivation of the criminal and the objective of the cyber criminal. So all of these things they go after. Your online credentials, that is your login. When you talk about credentials, we are talking about your username, password combination, and any other authentication platform that is used to ensure that you gain access to something. All of these things are very important. If we talk about the internet, we have the surface web, which is the open internet which everybody can access, which is indexed in your web browser. That is, when you launch your web browser, that environment you land upon at the first instance is the surface web. It's the surface web. After that, you have an area which is called the deep web. The deep web is where you need your credentials to access. Any area on the internet where you have to type in a username password combination to enter into a secure environment. Usually you have databases in this kind of environment. And a database is a store of records which you can access, of course, with the right authorization and credentials. So if you have these environments, that's the deep web. So your online credentials gets you access to the deep web. That means you can access your email address, can access your social media accounts, can access your financial platform. All of these things, all of these things help you they help you to get access. So your credentials, online credentials, are basically your key, and you need to keep it very safe. So cyber criminals can target your online credentials. And a good example of a target platform that can be launched, or an attack vector that can be used to go after your online credentials, is easily your password manager. For everyone that uses a web browser, there are some credentials that you save on your password manager, so that each time you want to log in, you don't have to use the manual logging in and the manual typing in of these credentials. So if you can save these credentials on the password manager, you can easily get access freely. But the vulnerability is that these password managers saved on the browser can constitute a weakness, because if your password manager is accessed, then all the credentials that are available there becomes uh, information that is at the tip of the finger of the cyber criminal. So it is very important that you keep your credentials safe. Also, you need to be aware of creative schemes. I've already talked a little about that. Creative schemes is about con artists, about people, about criminals who use gullibility of humans to trick you. Probably they may appear as a legitimate officer, a legitimate technician, a legitimate person, and they will present themselves and use that presentation to make you divulge information that you otherwise wouldn't have done. So that is what that is all about. It is very important that you be aware of creative schemes. That is why I said you should have your wits about you. You have to be smart. You have to be ensure that you are always aware. Of course, we cannot be 100% alert 100% of the time, but with conditioning, I think we can be able to fend off 99.9% of most of these creative schemes. And it's also very important to interact with people, to operate in forums, to participate and join forums where cybersecurity is a topic of discourse, because a lot of real life scenarios, real life experiences can be discussed, and people will be able to enjoy the benefit of experience and the learning from others. So that is very, very important, and you need to be aware of that. Um, why do they want your identity? For long-term profits. They may want to use it to create fake accounts and use it to obtain loans. They can use it to file fake tax returns. They can use it to request for medical benefits or apply for medical benefits and a host of all other things. And sometimes it can even just be embarrassing to know that someone is using your identity to dupe and trick all other people. And you definitely don't want this to be uh, your experience. So that is why they go after your identity. So identity theft is a big problem. It's part of the issues that you have to deal with when we are talking about cyber security, and that is personal data. Now, we are now also moving a little further. Well, before I move on, I want to know, do we have anyone that has a question, or probably we'll wait till the end of the session before we can entertain questions? But sometimes it might be good to take a break and just entertain questions. But we'll see how we can work it out as we proceed. But if there are questions, even if you don't have the uh, freedom or the opportunity to voice it out now, you can just type it out and keep it somewhere, or we can interact on the other platform after the class, irrespective of whichever channel or option we choose. I can assure you that we are going to address all questions in the course of our program. It's always good to ask questions. Now we have our personal data, which we have talked about, your medical records, your financial records, and all else. And we also have our organizational data. Just like individuals have data, organizations too have theirs. So these organizational data are the kind of data that organizations generate, and they are data that are associated with that corporate entity. So they can have application materials, the payroll, which is from the accounts, finance and accounting department. We have offer letters from HR. We have employee agreements, that's between HR and the employee. We have intellectual patents, very, very, very important, data, because patents define the organization. It's it's the leading edge that keeps an organization relevant in the competitive space that business exists in. We have trademarks, royalties, product plans, trade secrets. These are very, very critical data, organizational data that has to be properly secured. And rival companies, they can go after trade secrets, they can go after patents to gain undue advantage over their competitor. So it's very, very, very important. So all of these stuffs are things that cyber criminals target. Then of course, income statements, balance sheets, cash flow, and all other things. Then we have the Internet of Things too. We have large networks. Internet of Things, if I may quickly digress, is one of the course offerings we have in the Cisco Networking Academy. Anyone that has a interest in that too, you might just take a cursory look at it, and if you find it worth your while, you can add it to your learning basket, because it is very, very, very important. It's the big thing now. It's part of the everyday experience. It's part of the technology upon which we enjoy some services now. We have autonomous systems, we have automation, and all else. Internet of Things has made all of these things possible. So we need to be we need to make mention of it, and it's also one of the Achilles heels of cybersecurity. When we talk of cybersecurity, one of the areas of weakness, I've already mentioned human, the human factor as one of the weaknesses in cybersecurity. We can also look at IoT. Fine, it's been improved even as technology is improving in that fora of IoT. But a lot of IoT devices are still out there that are major causes of concern, and we need to be very, very aware of this. So it is very, very critical. Then, when we are also talking about cybersecurity, a trio of concepts need to be made to be out. We need to be aware of a trio of concepts. We call them confidentiality, integrity, and availability. They are features of an information system. They are features of an information system or a feature of a service you can have online, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. When we talk about confidentiality, is privacy. A service subscriber, a user of a service should have the confidence that his to have the confidence that his dealings, his interactions with his service provider is always secure and private. That is, there is always end-to-end communication. There is no third party or an unauthorized intruder in the communication. We need to be very, very aware of this. Then we have integrity. That is accuracy and trustworthiness of our information. Our information needs to be trustworthy. That is, we need to have the assurance that that information has not been tampered with, right from the point where it is being sent to the point where it is being received. It is as it is, untampered with. Because once information is tampered with, a lot of things can be removed, a lot of things can be added, and that information becomes compromised. So we need to be aware of that concept. Then we also have availability, the assurance that the system, the service is always up 99.9999% of the time. The service is always up. Anytime you need access, you are always able to get access. You're always able to enjoy the service. So it is very, very important that we know this. So there are a lot of ways by which you ensure that all of these three concepts are kept intact. So we will talk about that in the course of our program. For example, now, checksum is a method of verifying data integrity. So when a file is sent from source to destination, a check is carried out and a reference is made with the original file and the received file to see whether there is a deviation from, there is a disparity in the both of them. If there is, then it will fail the check, and definitely you know that integrity test has been failed. In the area of networking, it is usually done when packets are sent from one network to another. There's always a check, and if it fails the check, it's definitely going to be a problem. So it's everywhere. As we have it in networking, mainstream networking, we have it also in cyber security. We're going to look at this lab much later. Now, after we have understood what our organizational data is all about, we need to understand the impact of a security breach. A security breach is basically a successful attack situation, a successful security incident. That is, when a cyber criminal successfully launches an attack and he achieves his objective, then we can consider that situation to be a security breach, a breach in the information security system. And it has a profound effect on an organization. For example, the reputation of the organization is ruined. If as a customer to a bank, you understand it or you learned that the network of such a bank has been compromised, of course you will have concerns about your savings and you will definitely also be having a exit strategy already crafted to evacuate your funds and move them out of that financial institution, because the reputation of that institution has invariably been ruined because of that security breach. Then we can also have vandalism. Vandalism is all about a threat actor defacing uh, the, for example, the website of a service provider. If a vandal or a threat actor can gain access to a secure site and he can post unauthorized information on a website such that the information embarrasses the organization, or it is completely nonsensical, such that it portrays the organization in a caricature of itself, as a caricature of itself, it embarrasses them. So vandalism can be said to have occurred. Then data theft can also occur, that is exfiltration of data illegally. Data is evacuated from the servers, from the data center, in a manner such that it is being held and used by unauthorized persons, in which in this case is the cyber criminal. Then, of course, it also affects the organization. Then revenue is lost, because while that security breach persists, normal operations will be suspended. So you definitely will lose revenue. Then damaged intellectual property is also one of the fallout of this security breach. So as much as possible, it is better to prevent a breach than to plug the hole that the cyber criminal has used to gain access to the system and perpetrated his evil. So we have quite a lot of real life uh, instances of this breach and the impact on the organization. We have a lot of them. I would like to use this opportunity to quickly talk about one of the popular ones, which is the ransomware. Ransomware is a cyber equivalent of kidnapping, as it is. In this case, a cyber criminal gained accesses to the network infrastructure and has full control or partial control of sections of the uh, cyber assets of that organization. And what he does is that he either holds the organization at ransom by locking them out of their own system or encrypting their files. When you encrypt a file, that means you encode it such that somebody that wants to make meaningful use of that data will need a key to unlock the data so that it can be available in plain text in a format that can be used and understood. But if it is encoded, it is made secure from prying eyes. But if you do not have the key to access your own files, then it becomes a big a problem. And this is where ransomware comes in. So ransomware is a situation where is a kind of attack wherein your files are locked from you. You don't have access to your files, and you are not able to carry out normal operations and make use of your assets, which in this case is your data or even sections of your network infrastructure. You are locked out of all these facilities. So unless you make payment to ransom your systems back, and you make payments usually in cryptocurrency, you make the payments, and it has happened to a lot of organizations. I think if you make a quick search online at your leisure time, you should be able to read more about it. A lot of organizations had this problem some years back. I can't remember precisely, probably 2016 or 17. So they had issues, and the culprit then was Windows operating system, not Windows itself, but those organizations failed to carry out a security update that will allow them to block the hole or to block the flaw in the system. Microsoft have already released a security advisory, and the patch was out there, but they didn't do it. So their outdated operating system was a problem. Basically, what they had issues was the operating system they had issues with was Windows XP. So ransomware was a problem they faced in that instance. So let's talk a bit about these cyber threat actors. You can call them cyber criminals or you can call them threat actors. Those two terms correctly define them as a generic term. So examples of some of these attackers are the amateurs. The amateurs are people that don't have any skill or little skill. And what they use is existing tools and instructions found online. We know that everything can be done now if you make a search online. Even more complex projects that normally shouldn't be available, dangerous projects, the know-how is there and the step-by-step ways of executing these projects are out there online now. You can make a search and sometimes you can even get the solution in the dark web or the dark net, which is the deeper layer of the internet where your usual regular browser cannot get you to, because those websites that we have in the darknet are not indexed, they are not referenced in the directories of the web browser, but you use specialized tools, of course, to get to the darknet. So amateurs can access these tools there, or even some of them may even exist on the surface web, and they will be able to carry out a successful launch of an attack. Then we have the hackers, which is a generic term also because we have examples or categories of hackers. One of the previous speakers had already made a brief intro about hackers. He talked about ethical hackers. An ethical hacker is also a white hat hacker. He's someone uh, that is guided by ethics. He carries out his operations. He carries out penetration tests. He probes the system for weakness, and he's able to detect this weakness with the permission of the infrastructure service provider or the owner of the infrastructure, and is usually authorized and is able to make his recommendations and reports, and is also able to make a fix to fix the weakness in the system. So it's very important to know that a white hat hacker is an ethical hacker and is also someone that is bound by law, bound by ethics, and probably also in some cases morality too. But basically, is a lawful hacker. Is a lawful hacker. Then we have the gray hat hacker. This is a guy that operates in a gray area in between. Is a borderline hacker. He operates within the in the gray area between legality and illegality. So a gray hat hacker will definitely be able to do some things that a ethical hacker will not do. Or he may stop at some point beyond which a black hat hacker will still proceed. So that is why he is called a borderline hacker. He operates in a gray area. Right? A gray hacker is really someone that should be encouraged in his activities. Then, of course, we have the black hat hacker, who is definitely a criminal, and he takes advantage of any vulnerability in your system to achieve his objective. Then we also have a group of people called organized hackers. Under them, we can have our terrorists, we can have our state-sponsored hackers. When we talk about state-sponsored hackers, these are hackers. They may be freelance or they may be licensed and working under a legitimate government institution. And what they do is to hack on behalf of the government. and they carry out these attacks against other nations. So that's what they do. Then we also have the hacktivist. The hacktivist is more or less an activist that carries out his activities in the cyber world. So what they do also, they can carry out vandalism. If they have a cause, they may have a target, they may have someone, they have a grudge, they have someone they want to carry out their attack against, not for financial gains, not in a bid to terrorize the general public, but to target a specific entity, a specific target, and they can take their activism to that point of causing disruption in the services. So they have a cause. Usually, it might be political, it might be environmental, it might be any other platform, but they are definitely operating out there in the cyber world. Now, having discussed about these attackers, we also need to understand that we have uh, different types of these attackers. That is the direction from which they are coming from or their location. Some of them are internal and some of them are external. An internal threat comes from someone that is within the system who may not necessarily be an attacker. He may not necessarily be someone that has a malicious intent, but because of his activities, he may and will probably compromise the security system. And with his activity, he can inadvertently bring down the system or cause an external attacker to successfully launch his attack. So it is very important to know that an internal security threat poses even a greater damage or a greater risk to an information system compared to an external security threat. So the source can be an employee, it can be someone within the system, and somebody that is within the system has greater access, greater level of trust placed on him, and this makes him even more deadly as far as internal threat is concerned. An internal threat can be introduced through the use of a flash drive. Maybe someone solicits uh, help from him from outside. Kindly plug this flash drive into your system when you access your secure systems inside the organization. And with that, a system can be compromised and a malware, that is a malicious software, for example, a worm and all else, we'll talk about those later, can be introduced and the system can be compromised. But the conventional one, which everybody is usually familiar with, is of course the external threat. This is the guy that launches his attack from outside. What he's trying to do is to overwhelm the system, beat the system through non-conventional means and gain access, either through the back door or through elaborate schemes or through brute force hacking and any other tool that he may want to deploy and platform. So it is very important to understand that this kind of threat is out there. But like I said, I will emphasize it. Internal threat is very, very much more dangerous compared to the external security threat source. We are just about rounding up this particular session today. But before we do that, we'll talk about cyber warfare. Cyber warfare, like I said, is carried out by nations against other nations. It's carried out by big corporate entities against other corporate entities, but more often than not, it's usually nations against another nation. And they use it to wage war. Just like we have conventional warfare, we have cyber warfare. And with cyber warfare, the effect is much profound, especially in developed countries, where a lot of their systems, a lot of their services, public infrastructure, and all else are all based on the network infrastructure. Everything is out there and everything is on the cyber world. So when your network is compromised, you can disrupt the operations or the smooth services that public infrastructure uh, affords you as a citizen. If the power grid is compromised, you can shut down the power supply to certain regions in a country to embarrass the government or to use as a stepping stone for even a greater attack, depending on the objective of the cyber warmongering country. So cyber warfare is real, and it is very, very, very real. A, an example of it, I think there is a movie about it also. Is the Stuxnet malware, which was a cyber warfare that was launched by the US government against Iran a while back. Of course, Windows operating system was also part of the vulnerability that they leveraged upon. So basically, they used it to compromise their nuclear enrichment plan. You know, Iran is all about developing nuclear weapons, and US is not favorably disposed to that. So what happened was that they found a way to compromise the system. Someone was able to sneak into the facility, and with a flash drive, he was able to plug in and introduce a virus, a malware into the system. And this disrupted the cooling of critical systems within that plant, and it caused uh, disruption and the destruction of that program at that time. So usually, cyber warfare is carried out by countries, and Russia is also a player in this field of cyber warfare. North Korea also deploys cyber warfare too, a lot. They deploy it. The US does it, and a host of all other European countries. Um, at the level of Nigeria, I am not sure whether we are into cyber warfare yet. We have cyber criminality in Nigeria, but we don't have state-sponsored cyber warfare to the level by which, at least, it is in the public domain and public knowledge. But definitely, we may be having it too, and may be a closely guarded secret. But who knows? But cyber warfare is part of it, and it is professionals, it is people, hackers, state-sponsored or freelance or patriotic people, in quote, who are into this activity. So it is very, very important, and we need to be aware of it, and we need to be very, very sure of it. At this point, I will say we have come to the end of our session this wonderful evening. It's been nice having you, and I hope that you have questions for me. In the event of that, I think I will pass the ball to our coordinator, our moderator, Mr. Yinka. Are you still there, Mr. Yinka? Hello? Is Mr. Yinka still with us? Okay. I think he's no longer with us. But no problem. If we have questions, I think you can post the questions. I can take a few in the next few minutes. But I think we also have a platform through which we can interact. So we can. Okay, I think Mr. Yinka is back. So if you have something for us, please about the questions. But if not, I will take them directly. If you can post them on the chat, anyone that has a question, or I can take them later on the WhatsApp platform that we have everybody added to, so that we can address this question. There's going to be a quiz maybe on Saturday when we have our next class. There's going to be a quiz on this session, so I want you to review your notes which you have taken, and we'll have a quiz before we begin the session next time. So please take note of that. We're going to have a quiz, a very brief one, and it's a fun quiz. It's part of the learning process, so we'll take it. So I'm waiting for questions on the chat. Okay, someone asked if we are going to get a recording for the class? I should expect so. It's part of the resources that will help you to gain uh, a deeper understanding of the course. So that is all that's about that. So thank you very much for your time once again. And if there is no other question and nothing from Mr. Yinka, I think we can call it a day today. So we'll have a class again in the next coming days, and we'll definitely have a quiz and more activities. So this is our first contact, our first interaction with it's a good one. Thank you, everyone, and do have a lovely evening.